How do players go from breaking records, even landing million-dollar contracts, to being forgotten about? Well, this is the story of the NFL's biggest one-game wonders, according to the fans on a Reddit page that I came across. And we're starting off with a 7th-round draft pick who spent more than 3 years holding a clipboard behind Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay. He'd filled in a few times before 2011, including a 251-yard, 3-touchdown showing in a loss to New England in 2010, but that was nothing compared to what happened in Week 17 of the 2011 season. With the Packers resting Rodgers for the playoffs at this point, Flynn got his chance to start against the Detroit Lions.
Well, Happy New Year's, and here's one from Aaron Rodgers to all of you at home. Able to sit this one out?
The game started out a bit rough. Flynn threw some wobbly passes on the opening drive before getting strip-sacked by Sammy Lee Hill. Stephen Tulloch recovered the fumble, out-hustling several Packers to get the loose ball.
Watch this stunt on the backside with Van de Bosch putting pressure inside. He has to step up. They work as a group together. This is exactly what the Detroit Lions needed.
But after that shaky start, something clicked. By the end of the first quarter, Flynn had found his rhythm, connecting with Jordy Nelson for a 7-yard touchdown. In the second quarter, Ryan Grant helped him out by taking a screen pass to the house from 80 yards out. And then Flynn threw a perfect ball to Jordy Nelson for a 36-yard touchdown about 5 minutes later. In the third quarter, the Lions took back the lead, but Flynn, he had the answer, connecting on another deep ball to Nelson, this time from 58 yards. In the fourth, Flynn kept dealing. But the Lions, they just wouldn't go away. With time winding down and Detroit up 41-38, Flynn faced his biggest test yet.
Packers 1 timeout remaining, and they do have a 2-minute warning. Oh boy, looking for Jones. Got it.
That's as perfectly thrown deep ball as you can see in the NFL this year. Looking for this matchup down at the bottom of the field with Finley right here.
And they found it.
When the dust had settled, Flynn had 480 yards, 6 touchdowns, and just 1 interception. It was a franchise record for passing yards that even Favre and Rodgers hadn't reached, although Rodgers did go on to match it exactly in 2013. The timing of this couldn't have been better as well. Flynn was about to become a free agent. The Seattle Seahawks came calling, offering him a $26 million contract with $10 million guaranteed.
We begin with breaking Packers news tonight. Matt Flynn trades in being the backup for a starting job on the West Coast.
Well, it was supposed to be a starting job. But football has a way of writing unexpected stories. A rookie named Russell Wilson won the quarterback battle in training camp, sending Flynn back to the bench yet again. Over the next few years, Flynn moved to Oakland and then eventually back to Green Bay. By the time his career ended, he had just 2,541 passing yards and 17 touchdowns. While Matt Flynn's story played out over several years, Timmy Smith's rise and fall happened in a matter of days. A 5th-round pick in 1987, Smith had rushed for only 126 yards in his entire rookie season with Washington. His college career at Texas Tech had been derailed by injury, spoiling his final 2 years. But on January 31st, 1988, none of that mattered. Head coach Joe Gibbs kept his decision quiet until pregame warmups, not wanting to overwhelm his rookie running back with pressure. Smith found out that he would be starting in Super Bowl 22 against the Denver Broncos just hours before kickoff. Smith exposed the Broncos defense all game long, breaking free for a 58-yard touchdown run in the second quarter. By the time he punched in a 4-yard score in the fourth to make it 42-10, Smith had rewritten the record books. 204 yards and 2 touchdowns on 22 carries, a Super Bowl rushing record. Smith went from anonymous backup to American sports hero overnight. He appeared on David Letterman, he met the president. Everybody wanted to know about the rookie who came out of nowhere to dominate in the biggest game in sports. Trying to capitalize on his newfound fame, he attempted to hold out in the following season, demanding a new contract. When he finally returned to the field in 1988, Smith had a couple of good games, but then the magic was gone. Smith managed just 470 yards and 3 touchdowns on 155 carries. By 1990, after a brief one-game stint with the Cowboys, his NFL career was over. just 3 seasons after his historic Super Bowl performance.
Timmy Smith, you're talking about a one-game wonder. I don't think I've laid eyes on him since that day.
Smith's total career rushing yards, just 602. By 2005, long after his playing career was over, he was arrested for attempting to sell drugs to an undercover officer. Now, it's not quite the Super Bowl, but Gabe Davis, a 4th-round pick from the 2020 draft, picked the perfect moment to have the game of his life. The 2022 AFC divisional round matchup between the Bills and the Chiefs was already set up to be special. It featured 2 of the league's best quarterbacks, Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes, going head-to-head in the playoffs. But what unfolded next was something that nobody could have predicted. Davis started his scoring barrage with an 18-yard touchdown catch late in the second quarter.
Here they come, 1st and 10 to the end zone. It's caught. Davis with the touchdown.
But he was only getting warmed up. In the third quarter, he broke free yet again.
No first downs, just that one drive that was a quick one, and they go deep. They've got a man. It is Davis for his 2nd touchdown of the night.
The fourth quarter brought another score from 27 yards out. Then, with just 13 seconds remaining, Davis worked his magic again.
Could we possibly have 3 lead changes inside the last 2 minutes of a divisional playoff game? Down the middle to the end zone, and there it is! Touchdown number 4 on the night for Davis.
The Bills looked almost certain to advance to the AFC Championship game, but Mahomes had other ideas. The Chiefs quarterback led a miraculous drive to set up the game-tying field goal, forcing overtime at 36 apiece. Kansas City would go on to win that game with an 8-yard touchdown pass to Travis Kelce, but Davis had already etched his name in playoff history. 8 catches, 201 yards, and 4 touchdowns. It seemed like the Bills had found their next great receiver. The following season, his role in the offense expanded quite a bit, but the consistency, it just never came. Despite the increased opportunities, Davis struggled to replicate the dominance of that playoff performance, and he never managed to reach 1,000 yards in a single season. By 2024, he had moved on to Jacksonville, where he started just 9 games and totaled 239 yards with 2 touchdowns. His career might not be over just yet, but certainly doesn't seem to be going in the right direction. Now, at least Gabe Davis got a nickname out of it all: Big Game Gabe. Other players see their moment of brilliance cut short. Take Kadarius Toney, for example, the 20th overall pick in the 2021 NFL Draft, who couldn't catch a ball on the Chiefs if his life depended on it. His breakout performance, though, that came in week number 5 of his rookie season against the Dallas Cowboys when he was still on the New York Giants. It took Toney a while to get going in this one, but once he did, he was on fire. He was shifty, finding the open space in the defense, and even Trayvon Diggs, one of the league's top corners, found himself embarrassed by Toney's precise route running. A great sideline grab showed that he had hands to match his elusiveness.
Blitz, Jones in trouble, just throws it up for Toney, and catch is made.
The stats just kept piling up. By the fourth quarter, Toney had 10 catches for 189 yards and barely missed out on 2 touchdowns, getting tackled within the 2-yard line. The Giants were getting blown out at this point, but their rookie receiver looked like a superstar in the making.
Here we go. That was a full-on punch.
Toney was ejected, ending his historic day prematurely, but still, the performance had Giants fans dreaming. Their first-round pick had shown every trait that you could want in a modern NFL receiver: the route running, the hands, the yards after catch ability. But that afternoon wasn't a preview of what to expect for Giants fans. It was Toney's peak. By the middle of his second season, New York had seen enough. They shipped him to Kansas City, where he carved out a role as a special teams player. His biggest moment as a Chief came in Super Bowl 57 when he set a record with a 65-yard punt return. But the explosive playmaker who had torched the Cowboys defense was nowhere to be found, or hasn't been since then. Toney bounced between 3 teams in 4 years, never really finding a consistent role in any of the offenses. Most recently, he found himself on the Browns in 2024, where he had 1 single target. The next guy on our list today, Chase Claypool announced himself in very similar fashion to Toney, coming off a strong final season at Notre Dame where he racked up 1,037 yards and 13 touchdowns. The Steelers' second-round draft pick exploded in week number 5 of the 2020 season against the Philadelphia Eagles.
Chase Claypool, the rookie out of Notre Dame, picks up the Pittsburgh first down, a gain of 7.
Claypool started his scoring spree by punching in a 2-yard touchdown run near the end of the first.
Second and goal. Into the end zone is Claypool for a Steelers touchdown.
In the second, he hauled in a 32-yard touchdown catch. In the third quarter, he brought another score from 5 yards out, but Claypool saved his best for last. A 35-yard touchdown catch late in the fourth quarter that sealed the 38-29 win.
As Roethlisberger throws, Claypool makes the catch. His 4th touchdown today.
4 touchdowns, 3 through the air and 1 on the ground, along with 110 receiving yards. The performance helped catapult Pittsburgh to an 11-0 start and eventually a 12-4 record, winning the AFC North over the 11-5 Ravens and the Browns. Claypool even showed up in the playoffs, catching 5 passes for 59 yards and 2 touchdowns, but a 48-37 loss to Cleveland ended their season prematurely. From there, his career fell off fast. He never managed more than 2 touchdowns in any season after 2020. By November 2022, Pittsburgh traded him to Chicago.
The Chicago Bears, who have been sellers so far over the past week, are buyers today. They get wide receiver Chase Claypool from the Steelers for a 2023 second-round draft pick.
The Bears' stint, pretty disastrous to say the least. He drew criticism for lack of effort from the very first game, and before long, Claypool was traded to Miami for a late-round pick swap. At the end of the 2023 season, he had just 8 catches for 77 yards and 1 touchdown. In 2024, Claypool signed with Buffalo, hoping for one last shot at recapturing the magic, but a toe injury in training camp led to his release with an injury settlement before the season even began. Jerome Harrison is the next guy that we are going to cover. His path to the NFL looked very promising, a consensus All-American at Washington State who rushed for an incredible 1,900 yards and 16 touchdowns in his final college season. But after the Browns selected him in the 5th round of the 2006 draft, Harrison spent most of his time watching from the sidelines. Then came week 15 of the 2009 season against the Chiefs, and Harrison, he took advantage of his opportunity.
A chance to add to it. First play of the second quarter on a 2nd and 3. Harrison breaking through. Harrison out on the perimeter and forced out of bounds. 24-20, first possession of the second half for Cleveland. On a handoff for Harrison, who turns it upfield. Give is to Harrison again, and Harrison emerging through the hole. Jerome Harrison, goodbye. Harrison takes it the distance. Touchdown, Browns.
In the fourth quarter, he added another score from 8 yards out. Then, with the game tied at 34 and only 44 seconds remaining, he burst through the line for a 28-yard touchdown run that sealed the victory.
Handoff, Harrison, first down and more. Jerome Harrison walking the tightrope and will take it in for the touchdown.
Harrison finished the game with 286 yards and 3 touchdowns on 34 carries, 3rd on the all-time single-game rushing list. He followed that game up with 2 more solid efforts, 148 yards in Week 16 and 127 yards in Week 17, but the end-of-the-year surge came too late to save the Browns' season. They finished 5-11, missing the playoffs for the 7th straight year. More surprisingly, it couldn't save Harrison's role with the team either. Following season, he started in only 2 games, splitting time between Cleveland and Philadelphia while totaling just 330 yards and 1 touchdown. By 2011, Harrison had signed with Detroit, but his opportunities had all but vanished. He managed only 41 yards and never started a game for the Lions. But hey, at least Harrison's show went on for 3 weeks. Jonas Gray's NFL moment lasted exactly 1 game. After going undrafted in 2012, his path to playing time seemed blocked at every turn. He started with Miami, but ended up on the PUP list with a knee injury before getting cut. Baltimore signed him to the practice squad, where he spent the 2013 season watching and waiting. The Patriots finally took a chance on Gray in January of 2014, but even they weren't convinced at first. He failed to make the final roster and landed back on the practice squad. Finally, in October, New England promoted him to the active roster. A month later, in Week 11 against Indianapolis, Gray got his shot.
On a frigid night in Indianapolis, the roof is closed, and inside two red-hot teams. Back to the ground. This is Jonas Gray.
But he is thick. He's about 230 pounds a man, and as honest a back as you will find, he is going to run where Bill Belichick tells him to run.
What followed was one of the most dominant rushing performances in Patriots history. Gray hammered the Colts defense all night long, carrying the ball 37 times for 201 yards. 4 times he found the end zone. His 5.4 yards per carry made it look easy as New England rolled to a 42-20 win.
3 and 5 yards.
And here he goes again, a little shift to the left and into the end zone for his second touchdown. And they give it to Gray. And Gray for the 4th time tonight, 4 touchdowns.
The victory was crucial for the Patriots, who finished 12-4 and claimed the AFC's top seed over Denver. They would meet those same Colts again in the AFC Championship game, winning 45-7 on their way to a Super Bowl 49 victory over Seattle. But that win over the Colts was no thanks to Gray because he only ran for 4 yards on 4 carries. Then, when it came to the Super Bowl, he wasn't even active. By the end of 2015, he had bounced from New England to Miami, then to Jacksonville before washing out of the league entirely. His career numbers show just how quickly NFL success can vanish. 588 total rushing yards. Now we're going back to the quarterbacks with Mike White, a 5th-round pick in 2018. White had shown promise in college at Western Kentucky, throwing for over 4,000 yards in back-to-back seasons, but in the NFL, he never really got a chance to play. That is until week number 8 of his rookie year. The Jets, struggling through another difficult year, faced off against the Cincinnati Bengals. With Zach Wilson being benched the week prior, it was White's first chance to shine as a starter.
Up and off here to Carter on 1st and 10. Now back to the quarterback, White, who heaves it downfield, and it's caught by Crowder. Last week in New England. And White on the money that time with a good catch made about the 45. Mike White, a lot of pressure, and it was caught for the touchdown, they signaled, by Berrios.
White carved up the Bengals secondary, completing 37 of his 45 pass attempts. The yards kept piling up. 405 yards and 3 touchdowns later, he had led the Jets to a shocking 34-31 win. That afternoon, White showed everything that you wanted to see from an NFL starter. Accuracy, the poise, the ability to make plays when it mattered the most. It was enough for him to earn the AFC Offensive Player of the Week award, but like so many other players on this list, his moment was fleeting. In Week 10, he threw 4 interceptions against the Bills and was replaced by Joe Flacco towards the end of that game. White didn't see the field for the rest of the season after that. The Jets went on to finish the year 4-13, marking their 11th straight year missing the playoffs. While this was technically an improvement over their 2-14 record the previous season, it was certainly nothing to sing about. After another year with the Jets, White began moving around the league. He spent 2023 with Miami before landing in Buffalo for the 2024 season as a 3rd stringer. But if you guys thought Mike White's breakout game came out of nowhere, wait until you hear about Chris Matthews. An undrafted free agent in 2011, Matthews couldn't stick with the Browns. By 2012, he was playing indoor football for the Iowa Barnstormers, about as far from the NFL spotlight as you can possibly get. He also had a stint in the Canadian Football League with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers before the Seattle Seahawks took a chance on him in 2014. Matthews arrived in Seattle with 0 fanfare. Throughout the regular season, he failed to record a single catch. The first 2 rounds of the playoffs came and went without Matthews seeing any action in the passing game, but then came Super Bowl 49 against the New England Patriots.
Bill Belichick wearing his favorite hoodie. The number 2 pencil will go into his ear shortly. Stephen Hauschka will be kicking off for the Seattle Seahawks. The game is a toss-up. Both teams are terrific.
On the biggest stage, seemingly out of thin air, Matthews transformed into a big play threat. With time running out in the second quarter, he snagged an 11-yard touchdown from Russell Wilson that tied the game 14-14.
He's got to get rid of it in a hurry. And he does. And it's caught. Touchdown. Miss Matthews. This is a guy working in a Foot Locker store when the Seahawks called him and said, come on and try out.
By the time the final whistle blew, Matthews had racked up 109 yards on 4 catches. A player who had never caught a pass in the NFL before this had chosen the biggest stage possible to announce his arrival. But like so many one-game wonders before him, Matthews struggled to build on this Super Bowl performance. The following year, splitting time with Seattle and Baltimore, he managed just 13 catches for 151 yards and 1 touchdown. By the end of 2017, Matthews had played his last NFL snap. His journey came full circle as he returned to the Canadian Football League, playing for the Calgary Stampeders, Winnipeg Blue Bombers, and Montreal Alouettes in 2018 and 2019. When you talk about one-game wonders, you really don't get a better example than this. There was no gradual buildup, no real declining aftermath to speak of, just one explosive performance on football's biggest stage, sandwiched between years of obscurity. But in terms of impact, I don't know if any game beats what Vernon Perry did in the 1979 AFC Divisional Round game against the San Diego Chargers. It was a game that nobody thought the Houston Oilers could win, and Perry's path to that moment had been anything but smooth. Deemed too small by NFL scouts, he went undrafted. The Chicago Bears signed him as a free agent but cut him in the preseason. Like Matthews years later, Perry also had to prove himself in Canada, playing 2 seasons with the Montreal Alouettes. The odds were heavily stacked against Houston in this one. The Oilers were missing their quarterback, Dan Pastorini, star running back Earl Campbell, and top receiver Ken Burrow to injuries. The Chargers boasted a top 3 scoring offense and entered as heavy favorites to advance to the AFC Championship game.
What should have been a walk in the park turned into a nightmare for San Diego.
Yeah, Perry turned the game upside down.
And bounce to the air. Good protection. Throwing deep for Jefferson. Intercepted. Down the middle for Joyner. Intercepted.
Those 4 picks are a playoff record that still stands to this day. But he also showed up big on special teams. Perry broke through the line to block Mike Wood's field goal attempt, then scooped up the ball and returned it 57 yards.
Blocked! And Perry could go all the way, only Fuller to beat.
The big play set up a Houston field goal that would prove to be the difference in their shocking 17-14 victory. Dan Fouts threw 5 interceptions total and no touchdowns on 47 attempts. The supposedly undermanned Oilers had pulled off one of the biggest playoff upsets in NFL history, largely thanks to a safety who couldn't even make an NFL roster just a few years prior. During the next game against the Steelers, Perry had a pick 6 in the first quarter, but the Oilers' magic ran out by the end of the game, as they lost 27-13. But Perry had etched his name in playoff history. His 4-interception performance is one of the greatest individual defensive showings in postseason history. Now, which one of these games surprised you guys the most? And if you guys want to learn more about one-hit wonders, click this video right here to see some of the greatest one-hit wonders seasons in NFL history.